Video Phantom! Scary stories!
Before we begin, please make sure you visit our Video Phantoms website every day and check out all of the new content and cool stuff we have for you over there. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you won't miss whenever we upload next. With that being said, let's grab your popcorn and enjoy the video.
The name of today's story is called Evil Found Footage. Buckle up, the story begins right now. The small studio apartment was quiet, save for the low hum of the computer as it processed the latest batch of film clips. Josh Andrews, an aspiring filmmaker in his early 30s, sat hunched over his editing desk, eyes squinting at the screen. He'd spent the last year working on his first full-length documentary, a project he'd thrown himself into with fervor. It was a passion project, something he was convinced would be his big break. But the long hours and constant stress were beginning to take their toll. Tonight, the footage was from an abandoned asylum, a place with a dark history that had been shuttered for decades. The footage was supposed to be the centerpiece of his documentary, an exploration of forgotten places with tragic pasts. Josh had gone to the asylum with a small crew a week earlier, capturing hours of footage of the decaying halls, peeling wallpaper, and eerie silence. But as he began scrubbing through the clips, something caught his eye, something he didn't remember shooting. He paused the video, leaned in closer. There, in the corner of the frame, was a shadow, a shape that hadn't been there when they were filming. He was certain of it. He rewound the clip and watched again. The shadow was there, standing perfectly still, as if it were a person. Could be a trick of the light, he muttered to himself, though he wasn't convinced. He played the clip again, this time slowing it down. The shadow didn't move, didn't waver, but there was something undeniably human about its shape. Probably just one of the crew, he told himself, though he knew it wasn't. They had been careful not to get each other in the shots. He continued editing, pushing the strange occurrence to the back of his mind. But as the hours ticked by, the shadowy figure seemed to appear in more and more clips. Sometimes it was in the background, barely noticeable. Other times it was closer to the camera, as if it were watching them. The more he watched, the more unsettled he became. This wasn't just a trick of the light. Someone or something had been there with them. "Okay, Josh, you're just tired," he said aloud, though the words did little to calm his nerves. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. The clock on the wall read 3:17 a.m. His mind was playing tricks on him, he was sure of it. He needed sleep, that was all. But when he finally dragged himself to bed, sleep wouldn't come. He tossed and turned, his mind replaying the footage over and over. The shadowy figure haunted his thoughts, and as the night stretched on, he began to dread the next day's editing session. When morning came, he forced himself out of bed and into his desk chair. The footage still sat on the screen, paused on the frame with the shadow. He stared at it for a long time, trying to rationalize what he was seeing. He called his friend and fellow filmmaker, Mark, hoping to get a second opinion. Mark arrived an hour later, bleary-eyed but curious. "What's up, man? You sounded freaked out on the phone," Mark said as he entered the apartment. "Just take a look at this," Josh replied, pointing to the screen. Mark leaned in, watching the footage in silence. After a few moments, he glanced at Josh. "Is this real? I mean, this wasn't planned." "No," Josh said, his voice strained. "We didn't see it when we were filming. It's just there." Mark frowned, rewinding the clip and watching it again. "Maybe it's a reflection? Or some kind of glitch in the camera?" "I don't think so," Josh said, shaking his head. "It shows up in multiple clips in different places. It's not just one shot." They spent the next few hours reviewing the footage together, cataloging every appearance of the shadowy figure. Each time it appeared, the atmosphere in the room grew tenser, the air heavier with unease. "This is seriously messed up," Mark said finally, leaning back in his chair. "What do you want to do?" Josh stared at the screen, his mind racing. "I don't know. I mean, this could be huge. If this is real paranormal activity, it could be the thing that makes this documentary blow up. Yeah, or it could be the thing that drives you insane," Mark said with a nervous laugh. "This stuff isn't a joke, man. Josh nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He knew Mark was right. There was something dangerous about this footage. But the lure of fame, the possibility of creating something truly groundbreaking, was too strong to ignore. "Let's just keep going," Josh said finally. "We'll finish the edit and then, I don't know, maybe we'll bring in someone who knows more about this stuff. A paranormal expert or something." Mark hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but let's be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." The next few days were a blur of editing, reviewing, and cataloging the footage. The shadowy figure continued to appear, sometimes in places that made no sense. Standing in the middle of an empty hallway, or peering out from behind a door that had been locked for years. It was as if the figure was trying to get closer to the camera, to them. As they worked, strange things began to happen in the apartment. Objects would move on their own, lights would flicker, and there was a constant feeling of being watched. At night, Josh's dreams were filled with the shadowy figure, looming over him, whispering unintelligible words in his ear. Mark was growing increasingly uneasy, but Josh couldn't stop. He was obsessed, driven by a need to understand what was happening, to document it, to make sense of it all. He began to spend long hours alone in the apartment, watching the footage over and over, searching for clues. One night, as he was reviewing a particularly unsettling clip, the power in the apartment went out. The room was plunged into darkness, the only sound the frantic pounding of Josh's heart. He fumbled for his phone, using the flashlight to find his way to the breaker box. But as he reached the hallway, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There, standing at the end of the hallway, was the shadowy figure from the footage. It was no longer a vague shape on a screen. It was real, solid, and it was staring directly at him. Josh froze, his breath catching in his throat. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. It was just there, an inky blackness that seemed to absorb the light from his phone. What are you?" Josh whispered, his voice trembling. The figure remained silent, but Josh could feel its presence, heavy and oppressive. He took a step back, his hand shaking as he pointed the phone's light at the figure. The beam of light did nothing to penetrate the darkness, as if the figure was immune to it. Suddenly, the figure began to move, gliding silently toward him. Josh's mind screamed at him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. The figure stopped just inches from him, its presence overwhelming. Josh could feel its cold breath on his skin, could hear the faint whisper of something he couldn't understand. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. The lights flickered back on, and Josh found himself standing alone in the hallway, shaking uncontrollably. He stumbled back to his editing desk, his mind racing. He had to get out of here, had to leave the apartment, the footage, everything. But as he reached for the door, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, hands still trembling. It was a text from Mark. "Dude, you okay? I just had the freakiest dream. Saw that shadow thing in your apartment. Thought you should know." Josh's blood ran cold. He hadn't told Mark about what he'd just seen. He hadn't told anyone. His hands were shaking as he typed a response. "Get over here. Now." Mark arrived within minutes, looking as pale and shaken as Josh felt. "What the hell is going on, man?" "I don't know," Josh said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to get rid of that footage. It's doing something to us." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. Let's delete it all, right now." They returned to the editing desk and began erasing the footage, one clip at a time. But as they did, the lights in the apartment began to flicker again, and the temperature dropped suddenly. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy, and they both felt the unmistakable presence of the shadowy figure. "It's not going to let us," Mark whispered, his voice tight with fear. "Keep going," Josh said through gritted teeth, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "We have to get rid of it." But as they neared the final clip, the computer screen suddenly went black. The power in the apartment went out again, and they were plunged into darkness. "Mark, get your phone," Josh said, his voice shaking. But Mark didn't respond. "Mark!" Josh reached out in the darkness, but his hand found only empty air. Panic surged through him as he fumbled for his phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the empty room. Mark was gone. "Mark!" Josh shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. But there was no response, only silence. Suddenly, the shadowy figure appeared in the beam of light, standing just inches from Josh. He stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. "Leave me alone!" he screamed, but the figure remained silent, unmoving. Josh turned and ran, bursting out of the apartment and into the night. He didn't stop running until he was several blocks away, panting and shaking with fear. He never returned to the apartment. The next day, he left town, abandoning the documentary, the footage, and everything else. But the shadowy figure haunted his thoughts, his dreams, his every waking moment. Months later, the apartment was rented out to a new tenant. The landlord never mentioned the strange occurrences, and the new tenant, a young woman named Emily, had no idea of the apartment's dark history. But it didn't take long for her to notice the strange things happening around her. The lights would flicker, objects would move on their own, and there was always the feeling of being watched. One night, she found an old, half-erased file on the apartment's computer, a clip of footage from an abandoned asylum. Curious, she opened it, and as she watched, a shadowy figure appeared in the corner of the frame, standing perfectly still, just watching her.
Hey, what's up, guys? This your boy Quan318. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me to grow. And guys, if you really enjoyed the video, please give it a share on social media, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you guys be hanging out at the most. It really helps, and I appreciate it, guys. Also, my goal is to reach at least 1 million loyal subscribers over the next 5 years. Guys, I'm going to give it everything I got and go hard as I can. And hopefully it pays off for me, guys. And y'all going to be a big part of that. And as I grow, you guys will be rewarded for a lot of stuff for helping me participating. And as just a token of my appreciation, guys, the least I can do. Also, guys, make sure you go down in the video description and click the links. Visit all my websites. I put hella work into these websites, man. Getting them built up, jam-packed with content just for you guys. You know, we got videos. We got the hottest trending offers online. I'm talking about everything, guys. Everything from education, teaching you how to make $1,000 a day online. Like, man, guys, everything that you can think of is on there. So, guys, make sure you go over there, check it out. Click links, watch videos, do your thing, man. I really want you guys to enjoy. I worked hard on it, and I want you guys to really enjoy it, man. So, yeah. Also, guys, while you're down there in the description, make sure you go and check out my other channels. I got links to all of them down below. I worked hard on these channels, guys. I worked hard on my websites. I worked hard on everything for you guys. Make sure you join my Facebook groups. I got Facebook groups set up for every channel that I got, guys. I'm trying to go global, man. You feel me? It's the family, man. This Rich Founders, man. I want y'all to be part of Rich Founders. Y'all part of the family, man. This a mafia, you feel me? Going worldwide with this shit. But anyway, man, love you guys. Y'all be blessed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.